Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with your host, Christina Nitchman.
Your business, your dream. How to have the business you love, the life you want, and the financial freedom you desire. Sign up today at yourbusinessyourdream.com. This is your host, Christina Nitchman. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Hi, Susan. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
I am fantastic today, Christina. Thank you for asking.
I'm so excited you contacted us. You have such a unique story. You started out as a scientist, and then as an exotic dancer, and now you are a coach. I mean, wow, what a transformation. You are coming on today to share your wonderful new book, which is Self-Appeal, which is going to talk about what that all means to our audience. Before we go there, share with our audience a little bit about your backstory and what brought you to the world of coaching.
Well, certainly never imagined to actually be a coach. I was working in the science field. I have a degree in laser technology. I like to say that I was brain smart. I wasn't very body smart, meaning you couldn't see this to look at me, but I was a substance abuser. I do have drugs and alcohol in my background, and I was high functioning and existing in the world, even graduating from high school and technical school, the only woman with men, and I graduated with high honors. So on paper, I looked good. From the outside, I looked good, but inside I was very chaotic and hollow and confused and lonely and isolated. And I was working in the science realm for a national research facility in California. Mm-hmm. And then I became a sober woman at the age of 34. I became a sober woman. And that's when all of the things that I hadn't allowed myself to feel started to surface, because that's what we do with substances, actually with anything that we use to distract ourselves from ourselves. And I realized I was so miserable in the work that I was doing. It just did not satisfy my passionate soul, my creative soul. I didn't even know I had a creative soul. And interestingly enough, and I write about this in my memoir, but it was my hairdresser who I was complaining to, because I was a perpetual victim back then. I complained about a lot of things and felt like externally everything was out of my control. And anyway, he said to me, "You've got a nice body. Why don't you try doing this other line of work? Why don't you try stripping?" basically is what he said. And I had never been into one of those kinds of places, but I was curious and I was searching, and so here in the San Francisco Bay Area, I went into one club that certainly I wasn't going to work at. I did not need to do this kind of work, and then I went into a second club, Christina, and picture all the women in this very, very nice environment. They were wearing they were wearing evening gowns, and their hair and their makeup was done implicitly, and they were getting recognition, and there was lights and music, and they looked to me like the women in the magazines that I was reading, the Cosmo and the Vogue and the celebrities on television. They looked like women were, quote unquote, supposed to look and be in the world, and I was wearing jeans and a hard hat to work at the laboratory, working in the science realm. I was one of the boys, and that's what I fell in love with. And so it looked like fun, and I started doing this other line of work. As you can imagine, I was very naive, and it was quite the learning. And that's what my memoir is about. All of the things that I had to learn. Basically, I had to grow up within that environment. For a year, I did both jobs, and I couldn't keep that up energy-wise. So I quit the laser job that I was working, and I became this exotic dancer in San Francisco full-time, as much as, a few days a week. And then I had to really make some sense of what I was experiencing, and born of the years that I spent doing that work, and after I came out, now I was a very as I mentioned, lonely, isolated, confused, always looking outside of myself for approval from others. And that just didn't work. And as you can imagine, I got into some pretty sticky situations, actually quite, I was very foolish. I had no even value about my own body. And I could have died, and I did some pretty foolish things, and I had to use my scientific muscles. I call it being a scientist of self. I had to start saying, what is going on here? Why am I allowing myself to be in these situations that are harmful? And so as I grew up using the experiences of the dance club, and really even became more okay with my own sexuality, and that's a piece of the book. But I do want to say, I was not having sex in the clubs. Exotic dancers don't do that. But it was all the internal exploration, and I came out the other side a more whole woman, able to embrace all parts of me and actually have the self. People tell you to do so many things, and we women, especially myself, especially, I was pulled by what this person would say and that person, and I always tried to fit in and be liked, and I learned how to go back inside myself, self-appeal. I learned how to get my own internal validation. So when I came out when I was done dancing, and eventually I met a really great guy, and I got married, and then I just really felt like I wanted to help other women who need to feel that they are wonderful the way they are, so that they can achieve more of what they want. They can make the changes they want. And that's the piece about self-appeal that I really want people to hear is until we are really understanding, accepting, and then approving of ourselves, we can't actually go for what we want because we hold ourselves back. And actually, I was giving classes, and I forget to talk about this sometime. I was giving classes in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was giving striptease classes for women, PG rated, and the women coming to me were just so lovely, all ages, ethnicities, shapes, and sizes, and they wanted to do one thing, I realized, and that was to feel sexy and have fun and feel good in their body. And so they were coming to me to learn some pretty fun, cool things to use in the privacy of their home, but specifically to feel good about who they were.
I totally love your story. And I'm going to say here the full name of your book, From Sex Appeal to Self-Appeal, One Woman's Journey to Recover Her Body, her sexuality, herself. It's so important. When you contacted me, I was like, this is something you have to come on and talk to our audience about, because as I told you, most of our audience, 70% are women. And one of the top things we get asked is, please talk about sales and money and all that stuff, because I have a business. But one of the things I get when I talk to most of the coaches or consultants or business owners is deep down their struggles with self-worth. And your book really, really touches on a lot of the stuff you had to work through to get to your own self-appeal and to your own self-worth and understanding for yourself. I was an easy process, I'm sure, was it?
Oh, heck no. No. And it's ongoing. I need to say that there is no arrival. I am farther along today than I was 10 years ago, that's for certain, but it is an evolution. What it really involves, and this is where not everyone can do it, and everyone has to be at their own stage, but what it really involves is having that curious nature, and that must be the scientific aspect of me really, really won out. Honestly, I never enjoyed working with laser systems or physics. I mean, I'm good in math. I'm brain smart. But what I really, really began to enjoy was the workings of my own mind. And that's what I had to sift through. I mean, just one of the, I do relate some experiences in my book. And for instance, being a naive woman, and wanting money, right? We live in a culture where money is God at times, unfortunately. And I did go into a hotel room with a man who initially wanted to have sex for money. And I said, I wrestled with that, right? It's like, okay, no, I'm not going to go there. He offered me a lot of money, more money than I never made. And then I said to him, or not, I didn't say to him, but he said, well, how about nude dancing? And I had never done this in my life. And it was still a large amount of money. And I said, okay. And it was in that motel room that I finally kind of woke up, and I said, I suddenly got scared. It was like I was outside of myself, but then I came back into myself, and it's like, hey, wait a minute. And I grabbed my pepper spray, and I'm like, stay away. He wasn't really trying to do anything to me, but I suddenly realized, oh my God, what am I doing? And it was all for money. And so these, I just had a couple incidences where I did really foolish things because I had low self-worth. I did not value my own life in some respects. I was looking, I had green dollar signs in my eyes. And anyway, so no, so many things I touch on in the book.
Wow. I love that you just went there about what you really gained in that moment when you realize, what am I doing, putting my life in danger? And the dollar sign thing, I can relate to.
It's understandable, isn't it? Because we need that, and we're conditioned to think that we want that above all else, as that is a measure of success.
Yes.
But it's not. Let's face it, we need the money, but it's not a measure of success. Study after study shows that what's really important are relationships with people.
Yeah, it's funny because you've seen some of the richest people on the planet are the most unhappy, mean, spiteful, icky people. And I'm not saying all rich people are spiteful or evil. No, of course not. With money and wealth, you can do great things. But some of the wealthy people that just go after it for the sake of wealth itself and cash itself or nothing else than that are often very, very miserable because, as you said, it's about building relationships and connecting with other people is what life is all about. For anyone who might be in that position where they're in a place that they totally don't like, they're unhappy and they can't see any way out, being that you've been there and now reached a place where you're fulfilled, what would you suggest they do to start out?
Well, it's really hard to make a change when you're in that state. The thing that actually made a huge impact on me is that not too long after the hairdresser incident, actually it was before the hairdresser incident, somebody challenged me. They said, I challenge you not to be a victim. And I put that out there to everyone. Don't be a victim. It's hard to find any gratitude. And see, that's the thing. That's the real big piece about the self-appeal work that I do is I help people find the gratitude and the things that they're doing successfully and courageously already and focusing on that. Because, see, we're all doing that. But we forget. Something as simple as getting in our car and driving. If we really, really think about it, Christina, that is a courageous act when you consider everything that's happening. But it's a habit, right? So we just do it without much conscious thought. So really focusing on the positive things we do have, having that heart full of gratitude as much as possible, getting the vision of what we want to change, and remembering that change happens, but it doesn't happen overnight. It happens with patience and time. And
no, I get you.
Yeah.
No, I think people can relate because it's true. It's not a one-step process. And I think that's the hardest part. I think our society has eluded us to thinking there's this rainbow with the pot of gold or something. And, one day we'll wake up and it'll just be there. We'll reach the pot of gold. And really a life of fulfillment, happiness, or joy is something that is a constant, as my one friend said, it's constantly something I work towards. And a big element that a lot of successful people have come on the show and talked about is the sense of gratitude that no matter where you are in your life, if you can see the bits of it that you can be grateful for, whatever it might be. That, okay, I'm healthy today. I might not, no money came in my business, but I'm healthy. I have my children. If that alone you can be grateful for, that is something.
Exactly. See, the thing is, we get a vision of what success is supposed to be, and I'm really touching on this more in the work that I'm doing, is creating our own vision, because success can mean so many things, but we're inundated with what it's supposed to be. And see, that's the thing. That's the thing that I really wrestled with. Here I am. I was one of the oldest persons. Well, I was the oldest. Often I was the oldest woman, and I was a sober woman, and I worked in the clubs until my early 40s. Mm-hmm. And I really wrestled with, okay, society and my parents, whom I love dearly, don't get me wrong, they feel shame or heap shame, or they're telling me I'm doing something wrong, but really I'm not hurting anyone. And I had fun with the creativity and the costumes and the dancing and the places that I worked for the most part. I mean, there were some hairy moments, but that was the thing that really, I think, even helped me become that curious person even more, was like not buying into what society was saying, because for one thing, there was nowhere else that I could go. And that's the other piece. If anyone feels like a victim, or they're in a what I call a cycle of negativity, let's be realistic. We have to start where we start. Mm-hmm. We can't change the past. And so many of us, myself included at one time, we want to live there, right? Oh, I should have done this. Oh, I wish I could have, da-da-da-da-da. We can't change it. What we can do is we can learn from it. There is, all information is good. It's all research, what we do. And when we have that curious nature, as children, we're born with curious natures, and then we grow up to be adults, and it gets trained right out of us. But if we can keep that curious nature, it's like, okay, wow, you know what? I'm really unhappy with where I am. I'm really like, I don't want to be here, but okay, I have this great piece here and this great piece here, and I want this other piece here. Now, what are the small steps that I can take to build on that? Because when we take the small steps, that's the other piece. I'm sure you and your audience have done. I know I certainly have, and the women I've worked with. We get gung ho and we want to go for everything, like with the dollar side examples, right?
Yeah.
But if we take the small steps, if we're methodical and we're patient, then as we have success, our self-image grows, our energy grows, our self-image grows, and our self-image dictates what we get in life. Our self-image that was formed when we were young. But as adults, we can actually work to change it through success and positive feelings about who we are.
Is that why you called the book From Sex Appeal to Self-Appeal? You wanted people to focus on that? Is that where it came from? Where? I got the term, talk about patience. I've had self-appeal, the trademarked phrase of self-appeal, for close to 15 years now, and I've been working. The name of the book, I really thought that I could have money, fame, and love through external validation and being sexy and all this kind of stuff. And sex appeal is used to sell so many things in the world today. But it doesn't bring you any of that. And so it was just a no-brainer in a way for me to go from sex appeal to self-appeal. Because in the clubs, I was exuding visual fantasy, exuding all this sexiness. It wasn't really who I was as a person, but it was a show. I was an actress, but that's kind of how the name of the book. I just thought it was a cool name. Yeah, it is. And I'm thinking, now looking back at all your experiences, from being a scientist to an exotic dancer, that now you can look back and say that all the bits that I went through, all the experiences, like you said, it's a research, our life, that they all are not wasted. They're all not for naught. You can all take them and grow from them.
Exactly. It's all growth. nothing, we become conscious at certain times in our life, and everybody, in many ways, has an exotic dancing story. They may not have had the experience within the exotic dance club like I did, but if they haven't had it yet, they may. They have that piece, kind of like you, with the two jobs, where they wake up and go, hey, what am I doing? And that's the consciousness piece. So whenever we have that, then we move forward from there. But yes, it is all research. Research and information that we use, because, what other choice do we have, right? We can remain a victim and feel bad about things we've done, and I made a mistake and I could have done it differently, or we can be empowered and be a creator and actually say, okay, wow, you know what? Yesterday I did something really foolish. Am I going to dwell in that today, or am I going to learn from that and move forward? And so none of it is wasted.
Yeah. And I like what you just said, that you can reflect on and say, okay, that was foolish, not going to do that again. And I've heard other coaches say how important it is to recall and know that all the results in your life are really created by you. Basically be noticing, just like you're an observant scientist, you're looking at all the facts and you're like, okay, that wasn't a decision I want to do again. We're not going to go back there. We're going to do it different today.
Yes, exactly. It isn't judgmental, taking responsibility. It's actually being quite mature and grown up. And I think more adults need to understand that. That's what scientists do. And that's what's very hard for us to do in our lives. Scientists step outside. They observe without judgment, without criticism, without shame, without blame. And as much as possible, that's what we have to do with our past and even with our present, because we're going to falter. It's our psyche, our neural networks are hardwired into our brains, and we're going to regress and we're going to make mistakes. It's just what we do after we come out of the episode or the experience. Apology within a relationship is so important. And the only way that I've been able to sustain a lovely marriage now, and don't get me wrong, it's not all flowers and roses. It's wonderful. It deepens. But the only way I've been able to stay in it and deepen the relationship is because I've been able to embrace all the parts of me. We have the inner child. Everyone hears about the inner child. We have I call her the awkward adolescent. The piece of us, the young girl or the young boy who really wanted to fit in and did the uninformed or uneducated foolish things, and then we have the mother piece of us. Many of us have those, and embracing all of them. They all have something to teach us, and when we embrace them, then we become more whole and who we need to be in the world. And they all want to be heard. See, that's the thing. Communication with others is so important, but communication especially with ourselves. I really believe that all relationships start with the relationship we have with ourselves. And we all have relationships with ourselves, but they're not usually positive and nurturing in the way that we talk to ourselves or we treat ourselves. And that's where the real work comes in.
Yeah, and you've touched on so many important points. What I loved about you mentioning apology, I think it's true for a lot of us to remember that all you have to do is just realize, okay, that's your point of view, this is my point of view.
Exactly. Apologizing for all parts, because we all have a part. I think there is so much strength. A really well-grounded, strong person can apologize. That's the person who knows who they are. They have substance. I keep wanting to make political references right now, but I'm not going to go there.
But But you mentioned a good point about also just really loving ourselves. And I think that's important. I think when you can't be wrong, there's something about yourself you're not able to look at. There's something you're not secure with in yourself. And sometimes it's really not about the other person. It's really about reflecting with yourself. And I know early on, my partner and I had a lot more disagreements about things. And I was like, no, it's this way. And he was a lot more giving and a lot more like, okay, he'd concede more, and I would be very stubborn. And now we're together 10 years, my partner, and now I more readily will be like, okay, what's my part in this? Because if I hadn't been more of a, how should you say it, not only giving, but also, less hard-headed and say, okay, what's my responsibility in this? We wouldn't be together, after all this time. So I think in all relationships, it's important to realize, okay, if I'm having a problem here, something's bothering me, what's making me uncomfortable here? What is it inside of me? Because it could have something to do with something totally unrelated to what's going on right now with you and the other person.
Well, exactly. We're first of all, we can't change them, right? I've tried, and we can't change other people. So it's just like beating up our head against a brick wall to do that. The only one we can change is ourselves, and we are mirrors for each other, and that's the other important piece is, and you know what I learned that in the exotic dance club too. I was such a lonely, isolated woman, and I would go into the club and I would talk. I talked with a lot of men, and some of them would mirror my own loneliness and pain back to me. And I write about that. It was very, very endearing. I actually really learned to appreciate men and their hearts much better from working in that environment. And today, have you ever noticed that you may have a bad day, you might be angry or upset about something, and you go out, and then the people you meet are also angry and upset?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
See?
Yeah, totally.
They are mirroring your energy back to you. We're all energy. And we get back to us, for the most part, what we put out. Water seeks its own level. So I think that however you want to call it, self-appeal, raising your self-image, developing greater self-respect is so important, because then we don't change the people around us if we want to keep them around us. What happens is they just change subtly as we change, even if they're not attempting to, because of our own energy vibrations. And then we also role model. We role model for them how to treat us, because as we develop greater I'll just say self-appeal. As we develop greater self-appeal, then we can extend that to others as well. So they see that, and we role model for them, so they give it back to us. And then we also role model for the young people, the children in our lives. And that's so crucial, because they too get the messages, the messages that tell them they're not enough the way they are. The advertising messages that are designed to do one thing, and that is to make you feel bad about yourself, so you buy a product.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so pertinent to really, really look at, if you're getting, like, when you just mentioned, if you're angry, do you notice other people are angry? Wow, the whole world seems to be angry today. I had an experience several years back where I walked out of the house really angry, and I had a fight with someone in the coffee shop. I got on the train. Someone actually pulled out a knife on someone else. About 10 awful things happened on the way to work. And then somehow through mid-lunch time, I said, enough is enough. I actually made a conscious effort to change my attitude. And the rest of the day, amazing stuff started to happen, like happy stuff. And it was like a kind of, I don't know what it was that day, that I was kind of like awake. But I saw the transformation from the morning to the afternoon. I said, well, what do you know? I helped cause the horrible morning and wonderful evening.
Exactly. Good for you.
Now imagine if if most of us were to just pay attention, if things are really going icky in our life, what part could we change in our maybe attitude or the way we're looking at things to make things a little bit more positive, and hence, get people around us to be positive.
Exactly. And it's easy to it's easy to think about, and it's easy to do in theory. And then, of course, when we're in our lives and we're subjectively in our lives, it's harder to do in practice. But we keep striving for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been so informative and awesome. I don't want you to go without letting everyone know where they can find out more about you and your awesome book, From Sex Appeal to Self-Appeal, One Woman's Journey to Recovering Her Body, Her Sexuality, Herself. Let them know about all of that.
Well, thank you. Yes. First of all, my book is available. From Sex Appeal to Self-Appeal is available on Amazon. There are numerous reviews there, and I do have autographed copies on my website, selfappeal.com. Also, I am a coach, and I have developed a new video training series that I'm super excited about. It introduces people to who I am and some of my concepts, and it's completely complimentary. You can download it at my website, selfappeal.com, and it's titled Love Your Body, Change Your Life. And quite honestly, when I say body, people think physical body, but it's also your body of thought and your body of emotions. And I'm super excited about that. I have some other things coming up that people can learn about if they contact me or download the training series. And, of course, I'm on Twitter at Self-Appeal, and I do have a Facebook page, Self-Appeal with Susan Bremer O'Neill, and working on some of the other social media platforms as well. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that you mentioned that it's not just about your body, because I think we forget about our whole self, our mind, body, spirit. We're all, it's all connected. It's not just our body. It's not just our mind. It's not just our emotions. It's everything together.
Exactly. Yes. We're whole people, but we walk around fragmented. Parts of our minds we don't want to go into, or parts of our feelings that are uncomfortable, and we disconnect through substances or food or overwork or even relationships or social media. And it's so important that we learn to move into those places gently so that we can become more whole, and we embrace all parts of us. And that's what my work, I hope, addresses, is becoming more whole and happy, loving our body of thought, our physical body, and our body of emotions.
Absolutely. And, it's so true, because I think as children, we are more that whole real person, and within culture and life and just living, I think a lot of it gets pulled out of us. And then we spend our lives, getting reconnected with our true selves. And I know you are helping people find their self and their purpose and bring it into the world in a big way. So again, I just want to thank you for coming out here and sharing all this wonderful information with our audience. Thank you again, Susan, for coming to share your wisdom and gifts today on Savvy Central Radio.
Well, Christina, it's been my extreme pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, here's our interview with Paul D. Casey. Hi, Paul. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you?
Hey, I'm growing forward. That's my business name.
I love that. That is so awesome. Growing forward. Yay. And I'm so happy to have you out here today. We have a whole audience of entrepreneurs, most of which have been in business for a while, but some of which are just joining the wonderful ranks of entrepreneurship. So I know they're going to take great heed into hearing your wonderful story of how you took the plunge into entrepreneurship just over a year ago. Share a little bit about your journey and what brought you to becoming an entrepreneur.
Sure. So I was I've been in the nonprofit side for a while. That was my day job. And I just felt that every organization I was in sort of put a lid on me. So I'm sort of a creative idea guy. I'm the strength finder. I'm a maximizer. I try to make everything better that I touch. And I just felt that whatever system I was in, or maybe there was a boss or a board, that just sort of kept me down. I didn't have that freedom to innovate. And so it got pretty frustrating after a while. And so I developed the dream job while at the day job. And I'm so glad right now that I have done that.
Yeah. I'm glad, that's a good point you made, because I took the leap without any net. And I remember, it's funny, I hired a business coach. And I had just had it. My boss asked me at my day job, to do something unethical. And I was like really pins and needles. In fact, I was sick for 2 days, pining away. Should I do it? Should I not do it? And I just couldn't take it anymore. I was on the train praying, saying, God, I just can't quit. I've never been a quitter. And I feel like you won't have my back if I quit. And I felt God tell me, since when have I not had your back, no matter what decision you make? So at that point, it was the decision to me to follow my heart and to follow my integrity, because this was not right what they were asking me to do, and just plain old quit. So I came in there and told them why I was quitting, that I didn't feel comfortable them asking me to do something I felt was unethical and dishonest, and that I need to quit. And they tried to say, okay, we won't ask you to do it anymore. Stay on board. And then I felt, I was like, but that's not the point. The point is you run your business in a way that doesn't match with me, who I am as a person. It's just not good for me. I need to move on. So I gave them 3 weeks notice at that point, because they begged me to please stay on to help train someone, which I did. And honestly enough, I think we were good for each other, because later on they hired me as a consultant to help get things in line with a greater integrity with their office and their business. So I think we were good for each other. Yeah, I mean, it was a tremendous story. So when you took the leap, tell us about some of the things that happened to you. I'm sure it wasn't like bam, easy. You're keeping your day job, which was really smart. I wish I just stayed on, because I actually just helped out as a consultant basis here and there. But share the difficulties, the hurdles you went through with keeping your day job and growing your business. How did that work out for you?
Yeah, it was difficult, and even along the way, the day job folks, because I put like a sticker on the back of my car, Growing Ford Services, my advertisement around town, and there are people at the business that would say, hey, so is your heart here or is your heart there? And I would say, well, both, because I can compartmentalize and give my 100% here at day job, and then when I'm off work, I can give 100% on my dream job. But most people can't see that you could make that leap. And so, but I tried to keep integrity with both. And so my coaching and speaking business started to just start picking up momentum. It actually started at a low point on the day job, and I had 4 people call me in a month and say, hey, do you still do that coaching? And I'm like, I can. and so I actually got a check from a local business consulting for them, and I couldn't cash it because I wasn't an entity. I didn't have a business license and a tax ID number. And so that sort of kicked me into gear, just saying, all right, I got to go for this. And so I did that for 3 years off to the side, until it was just too hard to do both. And once I saw I was making enough money a couple of years ago to give this a try, if I could just devote 100% of effort into it, that's when I launched. So it was January of 15 that I launched. Headed into the year, and it wasn't paying all the bills, of course. No entrepreneur usually does right out of the chute. Yeah. And so, but I was networking like a madman here in my area. I live in Eastern Washington State, and I just went to every single networking thing. I was on social media. I just was going for it, but it was hard coming out of the chute to launch to pay the bills right away.
Yeah. I know the audience will get you too. We've all been there. I've been there. But you know what I'm picking up from you, that you were able to give 100% both to your day job and to your dream business. And that's the key. When you're following integrity, your greater value system, that's when you can do that. I find where there's a lackluster in a number of places I worked in the past with employees is when they feel the work they're doing is not gratifying to their spirit, to their greater sense of value and integrity. And I think that is the key to really first follow your heart, and to follow integrity and value system first and foremost in anything you do. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree, Christina. And what's really cool, and just a sideline to that, is if one area of your life is lit up like that, like my side business was lighting me up, it actually bled over into the day job, where it was starting to get a little like, wah, I'm not liking this quite as much. But when I would come to work after coaching somebody on my off time, I was still lit up, and I could bring my best to the day job.
Yeah, I think that's why, I've even heard therapists and doctors and people say to, their patients and such that it's important, even if you don't have, a separate business, AKA, but you have a passion and a hobby that you do on the side to the best of your ability, something that's your greatest heart desire and longing, and do that, you're able to affect all parts of your life and brighten it and make it better and give your all to everything you do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when I coach clients, I am doing activity like what lights you up, kind of activity where they list all the things that fill their tank, because most people that I coach are stuck in some way. We're all stuck in some area of our life. And by having that list of 15 to 20 things of what lights you up, then I say, let's start putting those on your calendar, because that's going to bleed into all those other areas of life, and it's going to brighten your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And now looking back, seeing the employer that I'd quit from later on hire me as a consultant 3 times, and the effect that we were able to have with each other, it was just a tremendous learning experience for all of us, how we were able to really bring more to the world by shifting. How has that worked out for you, Paul, when you've talked to some of your clients? Do some of them just have lost touch with their gifts and talents and passions, and how do you help them recover it and discover it again?
They have. In fact, one of my niches would be, one of them is time management, one of them is avoiding burnout. And people that are on the verge of burnout have totally lost what their favorite color is, what their hobbies are, who they are at their core. And so we have to do these activities to reconnect them, because they're just like their whole world is a shade of gray. They've lost touch with what lights them up. So yeah, I'll ask some passion questions like, what lit you up when you were a teenager and a young adult? What do everybody say that you're always good at? And 8 or 10 of those questions, when they start answering those, they start to brighten. You can see it in their eyes. They start to smile. Their talk gets more high pitched, and it's pretty excited to say, okay, let's go down that road. Are you ready? And they're ready.
Yeah. And that's so true, Paul. When it's interesting, when my mentor said to me, so what are your greatest passions? I was stumped. I said, she's like, okay, what did you do as a kid that you loved doing? And I was like, well, I love walking through the woods and playing with the animals that I met, like cats or dogs and whatever. And she's like, okay, keep going. And, it took, and here's the thing I think we want to let the audience know, is that it's not like a 5-minute process. Bam, I got it. My passion, my vocation, let's go. It's a process, isn't it?
It is, and I have them do probably, 8 to 10 assessments over the course of several sessions that help them connect with their values, their strengths, their passions, their love language, what lights them up, their motivations, and so they can write a personal mission statement, and that seems to be the catalyst. Once they write that personal mission statement based on all those assessments, that's the thing that serves as a filter for them to grow forward.
Yeah. And I heard you also wrote in your first year here, the static cling principle.
Yep.
What is that? That's your book. Share a little bit about what that's about.
Sure. So it was pretty funny. So I got the idea while doing laundry.
Surprise!
and I was pulling off, and got that shock because I forgot to use the fabric softener that day. And when you're a speaker, everything's a metaphor, in life. So I was just thinking, this is a metaphor for life. What you attach to your life is going to determine your future. And what you need to pull off your life is super important as well. So that's sort of the premise of the book is, how do you know when something is sticking to your life that's actually pulling you down? And what do you need to attach to your life and actually stick there for the long haul? What habits, what mindsets, what support system do you need to have in order to truly use the static cling principle in a great way?
And this is really a good point. I recall when I finally got real and told the truth to myself first, because it started with me acknowledging to myself that this wasn't working where I was at when I was at that job. And then having the courage to go to my bosses and say, here's what's not working and why. We had a heartfelt, screaming session at first, but what was interesting is what came from it is realizing what didn't work for all of us and being truthful about it. It turned out to a cathartic experience for all of us at the end. And to realize, okay, this isn't working for all of us. What can we do differently to make our lives better and go forward? And because I've heard say who you hang out with, the 5 people is who you
Oh, yeah.
yeah. But I think it's greater than that. You'd mentioned value system, what's pulling you down in other areas. For me, what books are you reading? What television are you watching? Is it all negative? And, I think all of it, the people you hang out with, you read, who what environment you put yourself in, what kind of, all of that, I think plays into your greater success, correct?
True, yeah. In fact, some of those, I think it's chapter 3 in the book, it talks about you're going to get it, you're going to stay stuck when you do some of those things you've talked about, like addictions, or like a boat anchor, hypocrisy, like saying one thing and then living contrary to your values, like in dissonance.
Yes.
That thing that's like, oh, and then, it's like, oh, that sounds awful. That's how we live our life, when we're not according to our values. You mentioned the destructive inputs, the stuff you consume through your eyes, your ears, and your mouth begin to define you in a bad way. And then manipulative people is another thing, controlling people that try to yank your chain and live out their agenda instead of yours. All 4 of those things really make you stay stuck, and you feel like, I don't even know who I am anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned people, and I remember I'd been in business a year, and I made a promise to myself that all negative, icky people be gone. I don't hate them. There's no negative feelings towards them. I'm just separating myself from them physically and mentally and all that good jazz. And I heard one of my old coworker friends say, "Wow, you've really changed. You're separating yourself." I said, "Listen, I'm not disliking them as the person, but them and their behavior and their way of being, manipulative or otherwise, is not serving me anymore, and I choose to separate." And some people could see it as, oh, you're being a little snobby or whatever, but I think you need to do that if you're going to grow. And what I find, if you do that, the people who are ready, when they are ready, people around you or friends or family or whatever, will join you when they're ready, if they're ready, when the time comes right for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially as an entrepreneur, your time is so valuable. And so you can't hang out with folks that aren't, as you said, serving you. And I don't mean that in a using a person way, but just in a way that it's like, I want to hang out in my limited time with those that are pushing me to new ideas, that want to bring out the best in me, help me love better, help me be who I am better. And that is energizing.
And this is the example, Paul. I was hanging out with my coworkers, and we used to go to this diner type place, and there was one waitress who's just horrible. She's really mean. She gets your order usually messed up. She treats her customers really poorly. And I was going in with my coworker, and I said, you know what? I'm not sitting in that area. We're not sitting on her table. I'm not dealing with her energy. And they said, whoa, what's up with you? And I'm like, no. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I don't want to be in that space. I'm not going to pay for that type of service. So we sat in a different area, and we had a wonderful experience. But that is part of what I mean. It was like, I'm not going to submit myself to that type of energy anymore. I'm just going to keep myself separate because it doesn't serve me.
Yeah, you have to have good boundaries.
Yeah.
The other half of the activity that I do with people, what lights you up on one side and what drains you on the other side. And so I have them come up with 15 to 20 things that suck the life out of you, which often are people who are fill in the blank, controlling, manipulative, they're on the drama train of life. And if you don't have boundaries around that, you will just default into that.
And I heard you mention before, Paul, and this is a really good one for our audience. You help people, entrepreneurs and such, deal with burnout and stress. That's a big thing. It was a big thing for me. Even last year, I found myself sitting at my desk going, when I make yet another sale, then I made these quotas in my head. If I can make XYZ sales, then I'll go and take a break and take a walk and have some fun. And then you find yourself sitting at your desk for 17 hours and of course, burning out and not serving anyone. How have you worked with your clients to help them through that process?
Yeah. I try to give them about 10 principles, over the course of our sessions of how to stay fresh in your leadership. Like, I'll just give you a couple of. One of them is that you have to have recovery time. So if you've gone through a very stressful season in your business, you've got to schedule some time off. Like, take your vacations. Take one full day off every week, which is super hard, especially if you're starting out as an entrepreneur, to take one full day off. Unplug from electronics, from X hour to X hour. You have to determine what that is, but you've got to be off duty for a period of time. It's not how much you're carrying, it's how long you carry it without a break. So that's a big principle, recovery time.
I like that you mentioned that because that was a thing with me. And it's amazing because I was having an issue with a client and a particular project. And like I said, I was deciding that I was not going to go out until I had XYZ results. And I was working 16, 17 hours. It was crazy. And I finally had a friend call me and said, they're in the area. We go for a walking meetup. And I just said, I'm going to do it. And I took the whole morning off and I walked for 4 hours. And all these ideas came to me that I was able to apply immediately into my business. And I kept thinking to myself, this is what I should be doing. And then I made a new habit that in the morning before I even start work, I wake up early and I go for a walk for at least 1 hour. And
that's tremendous. Great. That's a healthy behavior. Yeah. And I think what you realized at that point was that I'm not being true to myself again. So I'm getting on that edge of burnout. I call it reading your gauges.
Yes.
Like if I don't get any creative ideas, because I'm an idea guy, if I don't get ideas for a while, I know, I'm going dark. I'm not getting any fresh ideas. I've got to go recharge my batteries. That's a sign for me.
Yeah, it was interesting revelation for me, Paul, because I used to be in corporate and I worked in management and I used to work 12, 14, 15 hours, crazy hours, because I, again, would put these quotas on myself. It wasn't even the company I worked for that put on the stress that you have to stay in the office for all these crazy hours. It was me deciding I'm not giving enough. I need to do X, Y, Z. And I would make up this stuff in my head and then work all these crazy hours. And I found that last year when I was having that thing, I was doing the same thing that I did back in corporate without realizing. I was falling into the trap of that old behavior that wasn't serving me in corporate and definitely isn't serving me as a business owner.
Yeah, you sound like a driver and an achiever. Woohoo!
Yeah.
That's how we have to be careful because I'm that way too. And so, I've had to structure my day strategically in order to be careful of that. And actually, I know it sounds hokey, but each month this year, I'm going to stop working. I'm going to have a hard stop in my day 15 minutes earlier than I did the previous months. So right now, I'm at 8:30 p.m.
Wow.
Next month, it's going to be 8:15. The next month, it's going to be 8 o'clock. And I'm hoping by the end of the year, I can get more in a rhythm that's healthy, have more relaxed time that balances all the entrepreneur time.
Yeah. Because I've heard from very, very successful people, and this is one thing that's come up on the show a lot from people who've now made it to, we've had a couple of businesses, multi-millionaires and such. They said, you know what people don't realize is that I look good now on paper, but it wasn't until like year 10 that I really got to see the rewards of my effort. And that, it's not a one-step process. It's a go 10 steps and go back 5 steps. It's a ongoing process and there is no end. It's not like, bam, I'm here, it's all good. It's like life is an ending journey to reaching more and more better self. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. You have to pivot.
Yeah.
You have to just go, okay, this isn't working for me. And then you make a change and then you try it out for a while. Now, that one worked. I'm going to keep that habit.
Absolutely, Paul. So now tell me, you say you're very strategic with your time. Tell me a little bit about some of your strategies and how maybe you've helped some of your clients use some of those strategies themselves.
Yeah. So, well, first, I always lead with manage your time by your values and your vision. So you've got to get really connected with your 3 to 5 core values and schedule your days and your weeks around that, or else you will live off. And then your vision, where do you want to go? You've got to set goals that get you toward that. So, but some of the practical things I teach are, you need to have your 3 top priorities for tomorrow before you end your work today. And that one is just a real keeper idea. And I hear it on other podcasts. There's a lot of people, proposing this. And I've found that my clients are very successful when they have their big 3, when they front load that in the morning, when they eat that frog, according to Brian Tracy, you eat it early in the day. And then you actually schedule appointments with yourself to put those 3 priorities in at 9 o'clock, at 10:30, at 11, wherever you're going to put those, as if it's an appointment with another person. Because you would never stand somebody up in a coffee shop and blow them off, right? So you have to obey your calendar, put it in as if it's a person, do that task at that moment, and obey your calendar, and you'll find you're going to get your priorities done most every day.
I love that. And I found for myself, because right now I'm in the process of not only doing this radio show, which was last year my full-time business and the year before, but also going back to consulting again. And so now it's like double my workload. But I find what I had to do, like you, is get really strategic with my values and find ways to be most effective. Because when I looked back and really sat down and was honest about how I was spending my time, a lot of it was spent on silliness that was not growing the business and not doing anything efficient, like, Facebook or talking to peeps there, or answering emails here, there, and everywhere, just keeping it up.
Yep.
And, the email came in, I got to answer it, stop what I'm doing. And you don't realize that you've become kind of addicted and a slave to either email or social media or whatever. So now I'm very strategic with that, and I find that I feel so much freer and less stressed answering emails like 20 times a day, or being on Facebook or such like that.
Yeah, you probably had to figure out, like I do, you have to block out time to reply to email and block out time for social media, and try to keep it as best you can in those windows of time, even though you're still going to wander once in a while, and you still got to get back to people because you want great customer service.
Yes.
But man, if you can batch it into a block and then go back to your main top priorities for the day, you find at the end of the day, you don't go, where did my time go? You think like, hey, I feel pretty good. I'm going to bed.
Yeah. And for one, I realize I can get a lot more, like if the day that is, structured for my editing, I can get all the shows edited in much quicker time if I'm not, also playing around doing emails and blah, 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 and talking to people on the phone and such. So, I really, really was amazed at how much time I saved that I didn't realize I had been wasting prior. And plus, I now tell people, I get back to you within 24 to 48 hours business wise. Some people are like, but I texted you an hour ago. Why didn't you email me back? I'm like, because I don't answer them all day long. I answer them twice a day, and I will get back to you. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If actually sometimes if you answer too soon,
Yes.
I've found people then are entitled. They're like, okay, well then from now on you have to answer that soon.
Yeah, they expect it. They expect it.
That's undoable.
You've trained them. Exactly. Yeah.
Also like what you said about finishing one job before you start another. That is one of the best time management tips. I don't know if you're like most people, but sometimes we have like 8 tabs across our computer that are open at the same time, and each one of those represents a job that we haven't finished yet. And that causes like some of your mental RAM to just get bogged down. So it is super important to finish that one job before you get follow the shiny thing into social media land.
Yeah, exactly. And I found that I'll have like my recording stuff open, and then this Word doc and and then you're right, your brain becomes overloaded because you just see all the different tabs and it gets you stressed. Now I shut down all the tabs except what I'm working on and need for that particular task, and then when I'm done with it, open up the other tabs I need for this particular task. But cool. I used to be like that in corporate too. My boss used to be like, why do you have 20 tabs open on your computer? You have Excel, you have Word, you did it. Yeah, it's true. It puts you into overload.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I don't want our folks here to go away without finding out how they can work with you, find out more about you. Share that with them.
Sure. So on Facebook, I'm Growing Forward Services, and my website is paulcasey.org. So it's not the golfer, the professional golfer is paulcasey.com. So don't do that. Okay. paulcasey.org is where you can get a hold of me. On Twitter, I'm at GrowingFWD, and LinkedIn, I'm Paul D. Casey.
Ah, yay. And they can get your book at the same place, right? The Static Cling Principle there?
Absolutely.
Yay.
Yep, and they can get it on Amazon or through the website.
Yeah. What do you have planned for the coming year? Is there any super exciting events that you want to share with our audience?
I'm really digging at mastermind groups these days. I've started 2 of them. Got one for small business owners, one for managers, supervisors, more like middle managers that want to grow. And so those have been super fun, where we get together, and these are live here in town. I haven't jumped out into the online space for masterminds yet, but they're super fun. We make goals. We hold each other accountable to those goals. I do some group coaching on a topic like time management or avoiding burnout. We try to solve each other's business issues, and we all leave feeling like $1 million, like we're going to take on the world now. So I just really have enjoyed the mastermind concept.
Mm. And I really like that you mentioned that, because when I first got started my first year, I was on overwhelm and feeling like, how am I going to learn all of the bits and pieces I need to grow a business? And we don't know it all. We don't have a strength in everything. And I started a networking group, which was based on a support group where all of the business owners would come together and support each other. The one rule: no business cards, because I didn't want it to be a place where it's a business card passing out place. I wanted it to be where we really get to know each other and serve each other. And so, a mastermind is another place to serve each other, where you grow with ideas and help each other expand and keep each other accountable. Very important. So yes, how can folks join if they're in the Washington State area and around your area?
Oh, they can email me at pcgrowingforward@gmail.com, and that's probably the best way to hook up with me. And when this group is full, I'm going to start another one. So yeah, if they're definitely in this neighborhood, we'll definitely make it happen. And like I said, I do want to explore the online mastermind space that a lot of big speakers and coaches have as well.
Yeah. And that offers another way for maybe mothers who can't leave their kids and get babysitters to also connect with other like minds.
Sure.
Yeah. So thank you, Paul. This has been so wonderful having you out here and sharing your wisdom and gifts today on Savvy Central Radio. Again, everyone go to paulcasey.org. and thank you, Paul, for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
Thank you, Christina.